Blood covered Mira's hands as she looked down at the man who had destroyed her life. 6 months ago, she was an innocent 20-year-old with dreams of becoming a doctor. Now she stood in a mansion in Abu Dhabi, having done the unthinkable to save herself. This is the true story of how a young woman from a small village in Kerala became trapped in one of the most brutal trafficking schemes between India and the United Arab Emirates. What you're about to hear will shock you, educate you, and remind you that behind every headline, there's a human being fighting to survive. If you care about stories that matter, stories that expose the darkness and celebrate the strength of survivors, subscribe to Crime Canvas. We bring you true crime with humanity, purpose, and truth. In 2021, Mira Nair lived in a modest home in a small village outside Kochi, Kerala. Her father, Suresh, had once owned a successful spice trading business until flooding destroyed everything 2 years earlier. Without insurance, the family fell into debt that grew like a shadow over their lives. Mira's mother, Radha, had been diagnosed with cancer. The medical bills became impossible to manage. They sold everything of value. Radha's wedding jewelry, their small piece of land, even the old television that had been Suresh's pride. Mira had been forced to leave medical college despite being at the top of her class. She spent her days caring for her mother and taking tailoring work, her skilled hands working late into the night while her dreams of returning to medicine faded. The moneylender's threats became violent. He suggested that Mira could help settle the debt in ways that made Radha's blood run cold. Then a woman named Zaira Khan appeared. She arrived in a gleaming white Mercedes, wearing silk and gold that spoke of wealth beyond anything their village had seen. She presented herself as a marriage broker for wealthy men in the Gulf region. Zaira showed them photographs on her laptop. Young Indian women in designer clothes, standing before palatial homes, wearing jewelry that could have paid the Nair family's debts 5 times over. One of my clients has expressed particular interest in your daughter, Zaira explained smoothly. Sheikh Rahman Al Mansouri is a respected businessman in Abu Dhabi. He would offer a dowry payment of 20 lakh rupees. Enough to clear all your debts, pay for your wife's treatment, and secure your younger children's education. Suresh's face darkened. My daughter is not for sale. Of course not, Zaira replied. This is a proper marriage arrangement. The Sheikh simply has business matters requiring quick resolution, which is why we must move swiftly. The family barely slept that night. The age gap troubled them. The distance terrified them. But what choice did they have? 3 days later, Zaira returned with contracts and a video call from Sheikh Rahman himself. The connection was poor, but they could see his office with gold furniture and expensive art. He was 57 years old with graying hair and cold eyes. I am honored to welcome Mira into my household, he said formally. She will want for nothing. Mira noticed he never looked directly at her. His eyes remained fixed somewhere above the camera. When she tried to ask questions about her new life, Zaira answered instead of the Sheikh. The wedding ceremony happened within days. No relatives were invited for privacy reasons, Zaira explained. A local official performed a brief ceremony while Sheikh Rahman participated by video for only minutes. That night, Mira recorded a message on an old phone her cousin had given her. She hid it in a secret pocket she had sewn into her suitcase, knowing it might be her only connection to home. Mama, Papa, if you're hearing this, I'm probably already in Abu Dhabi. I know this is the only way to save our family. But if something happens to me if I don't call regularly, please know that something is wrong. The Abu Dhabi that greeted Mira was a landscape of impossible towers reaching into cloudless sky. The driver remained silent as they traveled through boulevards lined with palm trees. When they arrived at Sheikh Rahman's compound, Mira's breath caught. Massive walls surrounded the property, topped with security cameras that rotated slowly. Guards in crisp uniforms stood at iron gates that opened automatically. The mansion rose before her, a sprawling white structure with columns and domes gleaming in the desert sun. As the car stopped, Mira noticed there were no other vehicles, no neighbors visible. Just high walls and endless sky. A uniformed woman appeared immediately. The Sheikh is not home yet. I will show you to your quarters. As Mira stepped through the massive doors, she heard multiple locks engage behind her. The sound made her feel not like a bride entering her new home, but like a prisoner entering a cell. Her suite was larger than her entire family home. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool, a sitting area with plush furniture. These are for you, the woman said, opening a closet filled with designer clothes. The Sheikh has selected everything personally. When Mira tried to call home using the room phone, she discovered it only worked for internal numbers. The windows, though large, would not open. Sheikh Rahman arrived just before dinner. He entered without knocking, his eyes moving coldly over her body in the red dress she'd been instructed to wear. "You are thinner than in your photographs," he said. "We will have the chef prepare special meals. I prefer my women with more curves." He spoke as if discussing livestock. During dinner, he outlined her new life with clinical precision. "Your schedule will be delivered each morning. You will follow it exactly. Your primary duty is to maintain yourself as befits my wife. When can I call my parents?" Mira asked. His expression hardened. "All communication goes through my secretary. For your protection, of course. Abu Dhabi can be dangerous for naive young women." The next morning, Mira discovered what schedule meant. A detailed printout dictated every hour. When to wake, what to eat, when to exercise, what to wear. Even her bathroom time was allocated. Within the first week, she discovered cameras in every room except the bathroom. Small black domes in the corners, always watching. When she covered one with a scarf, a security guard appeared within minutes to remove it. "The Sheikh requires these for your safety, madam. Please do not interfere again." The first incident happened on her 10th day. Frustrated by another denied request to call home, Mira raised her voice to the Sheikh's personal assistant. "I just want 5 minutes to tell them I'm okay." "What kind of place is this?" That evening, Sheikh Rahman came to her room, his face calm in a way that made fear tighten in her stomach. "I understand you've been difficult today. I just want to speak to my family," Mira replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The slap came without warning. A swift motion that sent her sprawling onto marble floor. Her cheek burned as if on fire. "You will never raise your voice to my staff again. Your family has been paid for you. They have no further claim." The violence grew from there. Minor mistakes brought swift punishment. After particularly brutal nights, expensive gifts would appear. Diamond earrings, designer handbags, gold bracelets. As if pain could be erased with luxury. One night, after she refused to wear a revealing outfit for his business associates, the Sheikh's rage exploded. Mira woke the next morning with bruises across her ribs, unable to stand without gasping. Looking in the bathroom mirror at her split lip and hollow eyes, she barely recognized herself. Mira learned to survive by becoming invisible. She studied Sheikh Rahman's moods like a scholar. The slight tightening of his jaw before rage. The way he adjusted his cufflinks when displeased. The forced smile that meant she should prepare for what would happen when the staff left. Nasreen, a Filipino housemaid who had worked there for 5 years, became Mira's quiet ally. She never spoke directly about the Sheikh's cruelty, but her actions showed understanding. Extra painkillers left on the nightstand. Makeup placed to cover bruises. Whispered warnings about schedule changes. "You're not the first," Nasreen murmured one day. "But you could be different. Be careful but be smart." Using the phone hidden in her suitcase, Mira managed occasional brief calls to her family from the bathroom. She never told them the truth, knowing the money they received was paying for her mother's treatment. The psychological torment was sometimes worse than the physical abuse. Sheikh Rahman would ignore her for days, then appear unexpectedly at night. He would promise visits home that never happened. He would threaten to replace her if she didn't please him better. After 4 months, while searching for a place to hide her phone, Mira discovered a loose panel in her closet. Behind it was a service corridor connecting to empty guest rooms. Following it one afternoon during the Sheikh's business trip, she found a locked door with an electronic keypad. For weeks, she observed the staff, memorizing the code when a maid entered to clean. When she finally gained access, what she found made her blood freeze. The room was filled with labeled boxes, each containing personal belongings. Passports, jewelry, photographs, letters. Women's possessions organized like museum artifacts. One box labeled Fatima 2019 contained a gold locket with a family photo. Another labeled Sunita 2020 held a diary with entries that stopped suddenly. The most recent box, labeled Aisha 2021, contained clothing in Mira's size. "They disappear after a year or so," Nasreen whispered when Mira carefully questioned her. "He tires of them. There are rumors about a desert compound. No one who goes there ever returns." The reality became terrifyingly clear. She wasn't a wife. She was a temporary possession with an expiration date. Her fears were confirmed when she overheard Sheikh Rahman on the phone. "Yes, the girl from Nepal looks suitable. Very similar to my current one, but perhaps more obedient. Have the paperwork ready by next month." During a business gathering 6 months after her arrival, Mira was dressed in an expensive gown and instructed to smile and speak only when addressed. She was being displayed like another luxury item. Among the guests was a younger man whose resemblance to Sheikh Rahman was clear, though his features were softer. When the sheikh grudgingly introduced him as my son Tariq, Mira noticed the tension between them. Later, as Mira stood alone on the terrace, Tariq approached. Unlike the other men who had stared at her throughout the evening, his eyes met hers with something like recognition. The bruise on your collarbone. Makeup doesn't quite cover it. Mira instinctively pulled her shawl closer. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Tariq glanced toward the cameras before adding, You're not the first bride my father has brought home. The others don't stay long. Before she could respond, he slipped a folded note into her hand and walked away. Later, locked in her bathroom, Mira read his message. Be careful. I know what he does. I can help if you want, but we must be cautious. The fountain in the East Garden. Tomorrow 3 o'clock. For the first time since arriving in Abu Dhabi, Mira felt something beyond fear. A dangerous flicker of hope. Mira stood in the East Garden at exactly 3 o'clock, her heart pounding as she pretended to admire flowers. Nasreen had discreetly pointed out the blind spot in the surveillance system that morning. Tariq appeared suddenly from behind a tall hedge. He wore casual clothes that contrasted with the formal attire from the gathering. He motioned for her to follow him behind a stone fountain where rushing water would mask their conversation. Why are you helping me? Mira asked. He's your father. That man stopped being my father the day he killed my mother, Tariq replied, pain in his eyes. At least I believe he did. I was 16 when she vanished. The official story was a car accident, but she had threatened divorce after discovering his affairs and illegal business dealings. She had evidence against him. The day after she died, I was sent to boarding school in England. Why come back? To find proof. To expose him. To help his victims if I can. For 2 months, they communicated through notes passed by Nasreen, brief meetings in surveillance blind spots, careful timing around security rotations. Slowly, trust developed. Tariq revealed he had been documenting his father's activities for years. Evidence of financial crimes, abuses, and the suspicious disappearances of at least 4 previous wives brought from various countries. It's not just marriage, he explained. He's part of a larger network. They traffic women under false pretenses. The ones who become difficult simply disappear. Using her hidden phone, Mira began documenting everything. Each bruise, each threat, each moment of cruelty was captured. Tariq arranged for files to be encrypted and sent to a human rights lawyer. They met in the empty East Wing whenever Sheikh Rahman traveled to Dubai on Thursdays. Inside a rarely used suite, they assembled evidence. Photographs of injuries, recordings of threats, financial documents showing payments to officials who helped traffic young women. My mother tried to do this alone, Tariq said one afternoon. That was her mistake. We need to build a case so strong that even his connections can't protect him. Their shared purpose transformed into something deeper. Both broken by the Sheikh in different ways, they found in each other pieces of themselves they thought lost. For Mira, he became the only person who truly saw her. Not as property or victim, but as someone fighting to survive. They began to imagine a future beyond the compound walls. Escape to a country where Sheikh Rahman's influence couldn't reach. Testimony that would expose his crimes. Justice for the women who had disappeared. Nasreen helped coordinate their meetings, adjusting cameras when possible, warning them of schedule changes. As their evidence grew, so did their risk-taking. They planned to escape during his next business trip to London. Tariq had prepared new identities, secure accommodation in a country without extradition treaties, and connections to international human rights organizations. One more week, Tariq whispered during their last scheduled meeting. When he leaves for London, we'll have a 12-hour window before anyone realizes we're gone. They hadn't noticed Rashid, one of the younger security guards, standing in the shadowed doorway of the adjoining room. The plan collapsed the very next day. Sheikh Rahman summoned Mira to his private study, something that had never happened before. When she entered, she found him sitting calmly behind his desk, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Security footage from the East Wing played silently on a monitor behind him. Did you think I wouldn't know? He asked, his voice terrifyingly soft. Did you think you could work with my own son against me? Before she could answer, the door opened. 2 security guards dragged in Tariq, his face already bloody and swollen. Sheikh Rahman rose slowly, circling his desk to stand before his son. You always were weak like your mother, he said before nodding to the guards. What followed was brutality that exceeded anything Mira had witnessed. The Sheikh personally participated, his rage focused on Tariq, but occasionally turning toward Mira when she screamed or tried to intervene. He seemed to take particular pleasure in forcing her to watch as he methodically broke his son's fingers one by one. Stop. You'll kill him. Mira finally screamed. Sheikh Rahman paused, breathing heavily. Blood spattered his expensive suit. No, he said after a moment. Death would be too merciful. I want him to live, knowing he failed, knowing what it cost to betray me. He turned to the guards. Take him to the medical room. Make sure he survives, but ensure he never walks properly again. As they dragged Tariq's unconscious body away, the Sheikh turned his attention to Mira. The beating she received was calculated. Painful but avoiding her face, concentrated on areas that could be covered by clothing. When he finished, he ordered guards to take her to the basement level of the compound. They threw her into a concrete room with no windows. A thin mattress on the floor. A bucket in the corner. The heavy door locked with an electronic keypad. In the harsh overhead light, she saw scratches on the walls. Nail marks, counting lines, and in one corner, a name. Sunita. 4 days, Mira drifted in and out of consciousness. A guard occasionally delivered water and bread, enough to keep her alive, nothing more. Through cracked lips, she asked about Tariq, receiving only silence. During one food delivery, Rashid, the guard who had betrayed them, seemed remorseful. Your friend will live, he whispered. But his legs. The Sheikh made sure. Later, Rashid revealed more. The Sheikh has made arrangements for you. I heard him on the phone about the desert compound. After next week, he plans to take you there himself. Alone in the darkness, Mira remembered the boxes of belongings from women who had disappeared. She thought of diary entries that stopped suddenly. Photographs of smiling women who had vanished without trace. When Sheikh Rahman finally came to her cell, he was dressed immaculately, as if visiting a prisoner was just another appointment. I've been too lenient with you, he said. You've forgotten your place, forgotten who owns you. He paced the small room, explaining her future with chilling precision. Next week, after my international partners leave, we will take a trip to my desert property. It's quite remote. Peaceful, one might say. The women I bring there tend to have accidents. Tragic ones. His smile made her blood run cold. Your family will receive news of your unfortunate death. Perhaps a car crash like Tariq's mother, or maybe a drowning. I haven't decided yet. He knelt beside her, gripping her chin painfully. Until then, you'll stay here and reflect on what your disobedience has cost. Your mother's cancer could take a sudden turn for the worse. Your father's new business might suffer another unfortunate accident. As the door closed behind him, Mira curled onto the thin mattress, her body aching, her mind racing. She had 1 week to find a way out, or she would join the women whose names were scratched desperately on concrete walls. In the harsh light, Mira studied the walls more carefully. Beyond Sunita's name, she found others. Fatima, Aisha, Lena. Messages from women who had been here before her. Some had left tallies counting days. Others had scratched desperate prayers. One message hidden behind the mattress sent chills through her. He takes them to the desert. He buries them alive. During moments of clarity mixed with fear, Mira traced the wall where Sunita's name was scratched. Her fingers caught on a loose piece of concrete. Behind it was a small cavity containing a curved blade. A jambia dagger with a mother-of-pearl handle. Had Sunita hidden it there? Had she planned to use it but never found the opportunity? Mira slid the dagger under her mattress. On what might have been her 5th day in captivity, Sheikh Rahman stumbled in, clearly drunk, a bottle of expensive whiskey in his hand. Do you know? He slurred. My son is still alive. Disappointing. The doctors say he might even regain some mobility. He leaned forward, eyes unfocused. You're not the first to betray me. Tariq's mother thought she could take my children and my money. She collected evidence like you and my son have been doing. His face twisted with remembered rage. He detailed with clinical precision how he had arranged his wife's accident. How evidence disappeared. How officials were paid to look the other way. Your mother's cancer could worsen suddenly, he said conversationally. Your father's new business might suffer another unfortunate accident. Your sister might be approached by the wrong sort of men. So many dangers in this world. After he left, Mira collapsed, overwhelmed by despair. The next morning, the electronic keypad beeped. The door swung open to reveal Sheikh Rahman, still in his clothes from the previous night, eyes bloodshot. Get up, he ordered. Plans have changed. We're leaving for the desert compound today. When Mira didn't move quickly enough, he crossed the room and yanked her up by her arm. The dagger remained hidden beneath the mattress edge, momentarily out of reach. You think my son will save you? His breath, sour with alcohol, hit her face. The doctors say if he lives, he'll never walk again. Like father, like son, both destroyed by worthless women. Images flashed through Mira's mind. The bruises across her body. The wedding day when she believed she was saving her family. Nasreen being punished for helping her. Tariq's broken body. The name scratched into concrete walls. When Sheikh Rahman's hands closed around her throat, something inside her broke. She clawed at his hands as her vision darkened. Her lungs screamed for air. With the last of her strength, she reached blindly for the mattress edge. Her fingers connected with the dagger's handle. The blade slid between his ribs with surprising ease. Sheikh Rahman's hands loosened immediately. He looked down at the ornate handle protruding from his chest, his expression shifting from rage to utter disbelief. Blood spread across his expensive shirt in a widening circle. He stumbled backward, mouth opening and closing without sound. He tried to reach for her again, but his movements were uncoordinated. Mira scrambled away, watching as he sank to his knees. But the fury in his eyes remained. With one hand clutching the wound, he lunged toward her with unexpected strength. Pure instinct took over. Mira pulled the blade free and struck again. And again. And again. Each thrust accompanied by images of his violence. The first slap. The broken ribs. The endless humiliation. When she finally stopped, Sheikh Rahman lay motionless on the concrete floor, blood pooling around him. For several minutes, Mira stood frozen, watching the life drain from the man who had destroyed her. When his eyes finally went still, the reality of what she had done crashed over her. She had killed a man. She had ended a life. Yet in doing so, she had perhaps saved her own and others. The practical voice in her head, the one that had kept her alive these past months, cut through the shock. She had minutes, perhaps hours, before someone discovered them. With shaking hands, she searched Sheikh Rahman's pockets, finding his phone and access card. Using his fingerprint on the lifeless hand, she unlocked both. She made her way to his office. Using his access card, she entered the space dominated by a massive desk. The computer unlocked with the same fingerprint. She found folders containing wire transfers to officials in multiple countries, correspondence with Zaira and other marriage brokers, and most damning, a ledger tracking acquisitions and disposals of young women. She used Sheikh Rahman's phone to record herself, documenting her injuries and explaining what had happened. She transferred the files to a secure cloud account Tariq had created. Then she remembered what Rashid had said. Tariq was somewhere in the compound, injured but alive. Behind the third door she found him. Tariq lay on a hospital bed, his face bruised beyond recognition. Both legs were in cast. He was unconscious but breathing. Tariq, she whispered, touching his face gently. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening. Oh. He began, voice cracked. Your father is dead, Mira said simply. I had no choice. Understanding passed between them without further explanation. Together they formulated a plan. Tariq had been building connections with human rights investigators for months. One of his contacts was already in Abu Dhabi, gathering evidence on Sheikh Rahman's trafficking network. Using the Sheikh's phone, Tariq sent an emergency signal to this contact. A woman named Sarah who worked for an international organization. Moving through the mansion was agonizing, with Tariq leaning heavily on Mira. They used service corridors, timing movements between camera sweeps. At one point they heard guards shouting. Sheikh Rahman's body had been discovered. The compound erupted into chaos, which made their escape easier. As staff rushed toward the basement, they reached a service exit just as alarms began blaring. They slipped through a maintenance gate seconds before it sealed. Sarah was waiting in an unmarked car 2 blocks away, exactly as promised. As the compound disappeared behind them, Mira felt something she had not experienced in months. The possibility of freedom. I've been building a case against Sheikh Rahman for years, Sarah explained as she drove them to a safe house. But we lacked a survivor willing to testify. What followed became known in international media as the Abu Dhabi Palace of Horrors case. Mira's testimony and the evidence she had gathered broke the case wide open. Police investigations uncovered human remains at the desert property where Sheikh Rahman had planned to take her. Forensic teams identified 3 previous wives who had disappeared after threatening to expose him. Bank records revealed an extensive network of officials and brokers operating across India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. Zaira Khan was arrested in Mumbai while preparing to transport another young woman to Abu Dhabi. The case exposed dozens of similar operations throughout the Gulf states. The investigation revealed that Sheikh Rahman's trafficking network had been operating for over a decade, bringing in hundreds of women under false pretenses. Many had simply vanished, their families told they had died in accidents or run away. Initially charged with murder, Mira faced a legal system heavily influenced by wealthy families. But the evidence of abuse was overwhelming. International pressure mounted as human rights organizations rallied around her case. Medical examinations documented months of systematic abuse. The testimony of compound staff, including Nasreen and even Rashid, confirmed her account. 6 months after Sheikh Rahman's death, the court ruled it justified self-defense. More importantly, the ruling acknowledged the systematic abuse of trafficked women and called for comprehensive legal reforms. The Sheikh's assets, billions in property, investments and cash were seized. Much was returned to families of victims, while a significant portion was directed to anti-trafficking initiatives. 3 years later, Mira stood before a modern building in Kochi. The Survivors' Sanctuary, built with funds from Sheikh Rahman's seized assets. The center provided temporary housing, legal assistance and rehabilitation services for women escaping abusive marriages and trafficking situations. Beside her stood Tariq, finally recovered from his injuries, though he walked with a permanent limp. Their relationship had evolved beyond the intense connection forged in captivity. They worked together but lived separate lives, bound by shared purpose rather than romance. "Sometimes I still see his face," Mira admitted quietly as they prepared to cut the ribbon for the center's opening. "In my dreams." "The nightmares get better," Tariq reassured her, his hand briefly touching hers. "Not gone but better." Mira had returned to her studies, now pursuing a law degree focused on human rights. The trauma would always be part of her, but it no longer defined her. She had transformed from victim to survivor to advocate. Her family had relocated to Kochi. Her mother's cancer was in remission thanks to proper treatment. They had initially struggled to understand what she had endured, the full horror beyond what they could comprehend. But they had welcomed her home with unconditional love, helping to heal wounds that went deeper than physical scars. As Mira addressed the crowd gathered for the center's opening, government officials, NGO representatives, and most importantly, survivors like herself, she felt the weight of her journey. What happened in that compound was not just about one man's cruelty, she told them. It was about systems that treat women as commodities. About borders that are porous for predators but impenetrable for victims. About wealth that buys silence and poverty that sells daughters. She looked out at the faces watching her, some hopeful, some still carrying the haunted look she recognized from her own mirror. Today we open more than a building. We open a door for women who believe all doors are closed to them. We create a path where victims saw only walls. Later, alone in her office, Mira opened her desk drawer and removed a small object. The mother-of-pearl handle of the dagger that had saved her life, now fashioned into a pendant. She rarely wore it but always kept it close. A reminder of what she had survived. What she had done. The life she had taken to save her own. She had killed a monster, yes. But the act itself had exacted its own price. Nightmares. Flashbacks. Moments when her hands shook uncontrollably. The justice that followed had not erased the trauma of that moment when the blade first pierced his flesh. As she stood at the window overlooking the city, the pendant cool in her palm, Mira reflected on the complexity of her survival. How it had brought both liberation and burden. Justice and trauma. An end and a beginning. What had begun as a desperate act in a basement cell had become a mission that would define the rest of her life. Ensuring that no other woman would ever experience what she had endured behind the gleaming walls of Sheikh Rahman al-Mansouri's golden cage. Thank you for watching Crime Canvas. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes to the reality of trafficking hidden behind wealth and false promises, then subscribe to our channel. We bring you true stories that matter. Stories that expose injustice. Stories that honor survivors. Share this video. Spread awareness. Because knowledge is the first step toward protection. And remember, if you or someone you know is in danger, reach out. There are organizations ready to help. You are not alone. This is Crime Canvas, where every story is a lesson, every survivor is a hero, and every voice deserves to be heard.